Altered Beast came out in 1988 in Japan for the Sega Mega Drive and eventually made its way over to Scotland and the rest of Europe in 1990.
Rise from your grave.
It was the very first game to be bundled with the Sega Mega Drive, before Sonic the Hedgehog came along. So for a lot of people, this was the first game they ever got to play on the Mega Drive. At first glance, graphically, it's alright, but nothing special. The big problem is it doesn't do a great job of illustrating the massive jump in power from the 8-bit machines to the 16-bit machines. Compared to, say, the on-screen carnage of Gunstar Heroes or the sweeping distant backgrounds of Sonic the Hedgehog, Altered Beast looks a bit drab and unimpressive and basic. Also, the animation is lacking. Enemies in particular only have a few frames of animation each, especially compared to the arcade original. In fairness though, it looks a whole lot better than it sounds. That music. There are only a few tunes and they just plod on and on and on and on and on. I've never described music as dreich before, but here we are. It's not just because of the hardware of the time either. Mario, Sonic, Chrono Trigger, Streets of Rage, Comic Zone all had amazing music that made the most of the hardware they had. Anyway, enough about the window dressing. How does it play? In a word, repetitively. For the most part, you've just got two moves, punch and kick, which you do forever while enemies politely queue up in front of you. Now, of course, the big selling point of the game is that once you grab enough floaty steroids and go all beast mode, you get a whole bunch of extra powers. Except half the time the powers don't actually make much sense. Rather than having powers that help with the design of the stage, they mostly just do random things that might help with the end of level boss, but they don't really do much for the rest of the stage. The bear is particularly shite.
Welcome to your doom.
Just shite. As for the enemies, they range from boring to vaguely perverse. I mean, why has that guy got a hard-on? Why is that zombie wearing a hat? They just amble towards you and occasionally throw a punch. It's a bit like walking up Sucky Hall Street at 3 in the morning. Seriously though, apart from turning up in sheer numbers, not one of the enemies presents any real kind of challenge. I've had harder fights trying to get on the Edinburgh to Glasgow train when it's delayed and cut in half. The only enemies that present a challenge or actually do anything are the bosses, and they're generally a bit hit and miss. They have varied attacks, but it's not always clear what the attack pattern's meant to be and how you're meant to get past it and scalp them, which is generally what goes into a good boss fight. Don't believe me? Go fight Dr. Robotnik again. These gameplay problems would be bad enough in isolation, but unfortunately for Altered Beast, so many better scrolling beat-em-ups were right around the corner. 1989 gave us Final Fight, 1991 gave us Streets of Rage, and 1992 gave us its almighty sequel, Streets of Rage 2. All those games had amazing variety in characters, enemies, stages, and the gameplay was miles ahead of the basic two-button battling that Altered Beast has to offer. Streets of Rage 2 in particular has deceptively intricate gameplay which makes it still a joy to play and replay as you find out your character's strengths and weaknesses and the different ways that you can go about things. So while Altered Beast may have been people's first taste of an exciting new 16-bit era, the question remains, is it still good? Nah. To be honest, it was barely good back then. At best, it's worth a quick look as an interesting footnote in gaming history, but that's it. Mercifully, it can be completed in about 15 minutes, and at the end, you're greeted by an angry rhino in his pants. Want to see if your favourite childhood classic still measures up? Let me know in the comments. See ya.